Tazik. Good morning, Christy. Hello, hello. 9:40 a.m. on Friday, May 23rd, 2024. I'm 25. There's no excuse to be doing the last year thing when we're all the way deep into May. Calling this one Operation Tripod. Hope you guys are well. Thank you, Christy, again for the support. Thank you. I have a thank you stream coming up this weekend. I have several letters to read and some special thank yous to send out. I really wanted to get through this 280 series, which was probably one of the best accomplishments I've had so far in this channel. And today I wanted to add one more to the series, one more episode to the series for the Germs book to add an additional color and background to it. And that is going to be something called Operation Tripod. If you go to Houstonic.live and you click on the O's, I created a page for Operation Tripod. And let's read through what this is. Again, the 280 series corresponds to the book Germs. Again, a book that was published, made available for sale, purchased September 9th, 2001, just a couple dozen hours before September 11th, 2001. Involves a great number of people who wound up being involved or pulled in on that day, mentioned on that day, September 11th, and with events afterwards going all the way up to the current date are still visible people in with respect to the events of COVID-19 and the narrative of COVID-19. So we've just finished yesterday the final chapter, the conclusions chapter. We posted it, and we may do some additional chapters with some additional color on this. Christy says, I will be roaming the back roads of the United States Federal Service in the Southern Colorado. Hello, good morning, Marie. Aha. Oh, your coffee pot just died. Oh, my goodness. Oh, boy. Someone needs to get coffee from Marie. That is cruel. That's cruel. I'm sorry to hear that. If I lived a little bit closer, I would shut the stream down and bring you a coffee right now. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Good to have you here. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I got the chat window open on the side. I have a dental health checkup in about an hour or so, so I have a certain amount of bounded time here. So I have mentioned before several times throughout the readings as additional narration or in some of the deep dive episodes of this series that there was an exercise, a military exercise, a public emergency response exercise in Manhattan that was focused on a response to a biological terror event, which was scheduled on the day of September 11th, 2001. As it turned, but I had a hard time finding a lot of evidence about it. So I found whatever evidence I could and made a little compilation page, so it's now available for the archive. And certainly it won't illuminate us on all of the details of this particular exercise and how it played into September 11th, 2001. But it's a good starting point. So Operation Tripod. So what you'll find on Wikipedia on a subsection of another page called United States Government Operations and Exercises on September 11th, 2001 is two paragraphs for the Operation Tripod, and that's TRIPOD, Operation Tripod Bioterrorism Exercise. And it reads as follows. On September 12th, 2001, there was due to take place the second part of an exercise known as Operation Tripod, set up to, quote, test the plan to distribute antibiotics to the entire city population during a bioterrorism attack, unquote. Richard Shearer, who is the director of the New York City Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, or the NYCOEM, had hired over 1,000 police academy cadets and fire department trainees to play terrified civilians afflicted with various medical conditions, allergies, and panic attacks. Various individuals were invited to watch, including Mayor Giuliani, the police and fire commissioners, and representatives of the FBI and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Pier 92 in New York City was set up as a model distribution station where the victims of the mock attack who needed to receive antibiotics would be treated. The exercise was a follow-up to a previous training exercise in New York called Red X, and that's RED-X or RED-EX, which took place on May 21st, 2001. According to the MTI report, Saving City Lifelines, Lessons Learned During the 9/11 Terrorist Attacks, September 11th was going to be a busy day at the OEM. Again, that's the Office of Emergency Management. Staff members arrived to prepare for Operation Tripod. When the September 11th, 2001 attacks began in New York City, Operation Tripod was immediately canceled as attentions turned to the real ongoing emergency. Because Pier 92 had been set up ready for the exercise, New York City Office of Emergency Management, OEM staff were able to move there quickly and convert it into a large emergency operations center when their original command center in World Trade Center Building 7 was evacuated and later destroyed. Interesting that Wikipedia says destroyed. I think they actually meant to say the building crumbled. Destroyed means, well, you know. Thus, within 31 hours of the attacks, the New York City Office of Emergency Management had a functional facility able to manage the search and rescue effort just 4 miles northwest of the World Trade Center site. The exercise was later rescheduled and took place on May 22nd, 2002. Now, New York Magazine on October 15th, 2001 ran an article titled "Man Behind the Mayor," and this reiterates, it's actually used as a reference for this current small section within Wikipedia. And it starts off reading, on the morning of September 12th, Richard Shearer, director of the mayor's Office of Emergency Management, was scheduled to conduct a biological terrorism drill in a cavernous commercial warehouse on the Hudson River, known as Tripod, or Trial Point of Distribution. The exercise was to test how quickly Richard Shearer's staff could administer treatments at the kind of ad hoc medical centers that would be set up all over the city in the event of an actual attack. For an audience, Shearer had lined up Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the police and fire commissioners, and representatives of the FBI and Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. He had hired 1,000 police academy cadets and fire department trainees to play terrified civilians afflicted with various medical conditions, allergies, and panic attacks. He had even arranged for a shipment of 70,000 M&Ms to be delivered and divided by color into medical packets representing different prophylactics and vaccines, but the M&Ms never arrived. On the morning of September 11th, Richard Shearer got to City Hall at 8 a.m. for a meeting about the Jackie Robinson Pee Wee Reese Memorial planned for Coney Island. Ralph Branca, Richard Shearer says, I was in heaven sitting between Ralph Branca and Joe Black. We were about to select a statue, and then we heard the pop. At first, he thought a transformer had exploded in an underground substation. Then he got a flash report from the Watch Command in the Office of Emergency Management Headquarters. And he goes on to talk about the day. There's also, and it's a long article, there's also a December 20th, 2002 article from the New York Sun. I'm just going to scoot out of the way just a little bit more here. In the New York Sun, which is used to be a newspaper. It now exists as a sort of a semi-conservative website. This was run, and I attained the copy of this via the Internet Archive, or the Wayback Machine, on December 20th, 2002, where it also talks about, in May 2001, before the attacks on the World Trade Center, the city's Emergency Management Office, then under the direction of Richard Shearer, organized Red X, in which terrorists attacked New York with a biological agent. Richard Shearer recalled, 5 minutes into the exercise, and he forgot it was an exercise, we virtually quarantined Manhattan. A second part of the exercise, called Tripod, or Operation Tripod, tested the city's ability to dispense medication in large quantities of an emergency on an emergency basis. Mr. Shearer said the city's response to the Trade Center attacks benefited from the drills. And it all boils down to practice, he said. And with the threat of a biological, radiological, or chemical attack in the city, which is a major U.S. metropolitan center, is a realistic threat, the city's health infrastructure has been struggling to stay prepared. He went on, Dr. Thomas Frieden told the New York Sun, the threat of bioterrorism reminds everyone that the public health is integral to the public safety. And I'm sure that word public health and public safety are phrases that our friend Joe Marshall at Liberty Perspective is going to love deep diving about, because that is the slippery slope to the end of liberty, when the public health outweighs the needs and the rights of the liberty of the individual. So much of the department was actually set up by Jerome Hauer, and Jerome Hauer is a prominent figure in the book Germs that we just completed the narration of. Jerome Hauer was hired by Rudy Giuliani in 1995 and 1996. He set up this entire Office of Emergency Management. He then, curiously, in April, I think it was April of 1998, was just a couple seats over from Craig Venter and Joshua Lederberg in the meeting with then President Bill Clinton, HHS Secretary Donna Shalala, and other people there included Barbara Hatch Rosenberg, who went on to say that the USAMRIID might have been the source of the anthrax, even blamed it on Stephen Hatfield, or said he could have been someone responsible. Also there was John Podesta, and a variety of other, Thomas Monath, who's also in the Germs book, and so on and so forth. Monath, again, went on to become a boss and a frequent collaborator of Robert Malone. Anyways, this exercise was real. I have a short video I can play that I just posted just to give it a little bit of color here. Now, unfortunately, Richard Shearer died in 2012. He was only like age 62 or 63. He did not look like he looked unhealthy. Okay, he was very heavy set. So I don't suspect any foul play. But it's unfortunate that he's not still here. If you watch his body language, he seems to have been a good soul. But let's just watch the background here. Let me go to Houstonic.live, and we can go to the recently shared videos here. I'll click this over here. And we will scroll down, and I have a copy of it on someone else's YouTube channel. And by the way, the source of this video is a History Channel September 2001 documentary, which was made on the 1-year anniversary of September 11th, 2001. It's a rather hard documentary to find. I think I did locate a full copy. It's about a 48-minute video, which I will repost. I've already downloaded it. This is a 7.5 minute clip, and these are excerpts of Richard Shearer regarding the New York City Office of Emergency Management and World Trade Center Building 7.
Since September 11th, one man has played a role in every recovery effort, every evacuation order, every decision to shut down a city street or subway line.
What we should do is set up a monitoring point
He is Richard Shearer, the director of New York City's Office of Emergency Management, or OEM.
There's no book on a disaster of this magnitude. The number of people that have been killed and missing is just beyond comprehension.
The OEM was created in 1976 as part of the police department. Today, it marshals the response to any crisis that threatens the safety of New Yorkers. The morning of the attack, Shearer, who reports directly to Mayor Rudy Giuliani, happened to be in a meeting at City Hall when he received an urgent message from OEM headquarters. The World Trade Center had been hit. Moments later, Shearer issued his first order.
Thinking that we were going to have thousands of injured people. They said activate the hospital plan.
As Shearer
just note, okay, just keep in mind that this video of these buildings crumbling, of these buildings getting ready to explode, of Richard Shearer getting put into action. Keep in mind that personnel were flying to New York City and getting hotel rooms and setting up tables for the emergency response for Operation Tripod, which was scheduled on September 12th. But they were doing that on the day people were putting this book onto book stands to sell. All right? I want you to don't lose track of the fact of how close these things are. Right? I put T-shirts on the drying rack to dry longer than the period of time between the publication of this book and these buildings exploding. All right? Keep in mind, that's how close of a window we're talking about here. All right? So,
As Shearer scrambled to the attack site, he dispatched more commands. Shut down traffic in Lower Manhattan and close every bridge and tunnel in the city. 5 minutes after the attack, Shearer was at Ground Zero, huddling with the city's fire and police commissioners at the base of the burning building. But as they began their work, the unthinkable happened all over again.
Oh my God.
At 9:03, the second plane pierced the skin of the second tower.
I was concerned. Now it was clear this was not an accident. It was a terrorism attack, that there could be other planes.
Shearer says he tried to get a message to NYPD Aviation, telling it to do everything in its power to keep other planes away from the World Trade Center.
We need to make sure another plane doesn't hit this building.
He also tried to phone the mayor, who was on his way to the location, and warn him that it might not be safe.
I was trying to get a message to him not to come in a certain entrance because it was dangerous. Things were falling from the building and didn't want him to come in that way. And we were having a hard time communicating.
Minutes later, Shearer and the commissioners joined Mayor Giuliani in an office building across the street from the towers. They sent messages to the Coast Guard and the Pentagon, itself under attack, asking the agencies to seal the city's harbor and airspace. Then, just before 10 o'clock, an unforeseen setback.
I was talking to my office on the radio. We had good communications, having them make calls, opening up, getting agencies in there. At some point, and really you lose track of time, one of my deputy directors got on the radio and told me we'd just been ordered to evacuate the building.
That building was the home of Shearer's state-of-the-art emergency operations center, a bulletproof bunker designed to weather hurricanes, blackouts, and bombs.
Building
It was
7.
a dazzling array of manpower and technology, workspace for 58 government agencies, computers pinpointing every sewer line and subway tunnel, hotlines to the police and fire departments. But on September 11th, there was just one problem. The $13 million facility was located on the 23rd floor of 7 World Trade Center, and Shearer's staff had to evacuate.
When we lost the city's emergency operations center, that was the one thing we needed the most, and we didn't have it.
And the situation was about to deteriorate dramatically. At 9:50 a.m., Tower 2 collapsed. Shearer needed to respond, but first, he and the mayor had to escape from a building that was in danger of crumbling too.
We couldn't get out of the building. The building was being hit by debris. Tried 4 different exits, and fortunately there was a janitor who really knew his way around and got us out of that building. When we got out of that building, we walked out until to a scene that you'd think was a science fiction movie.
Then, at 10:29, the other tower came tumbling down. Hundreds of rescue workers, including some close personal friends of Shearer, were inside when the building fell.
343 firefighters. That's a number that's behind comprehension. 23 New York City police officers, 39, I believe, is Port Authority police officers, 3 court officers, EMTs.
Well, this is the worst I've ever seen.
People whose only role in life was to save people.
For Shearer, there would be no time to grieve. With the World Trade Center gone and their Emergency Operations Center compromised, a new command post had to be found, fast. Shearer, the mayor, and other top officials headed north, away from the rubble.
I say we still go north.
We kept going and kept moving. The cloud of dust from the first explosion was starting to dissipate.
First, they settled in a firehouse 20 blocks away, but that office was too small. By noon, they had landed at a new location, the police academy.
We went to the library. We took the library and made it into an emergency operations center, which is, we had about 30 agencies.
Inside, Shearer supervised rescue efforts and communicated with agencies working at Ground Zero.
One of the first things we do is check what buildings are habitable, what buildings are in danger of collapse to make sure we have nobody in harm's way.
Then, at 5:25, more devastation. 7 World Trade Center, the home of Shearer's prized operations center, collapsed.
Somebody comes in and says, "Don't worry about number 7, it's gone." It just had fully collapsed.
In the hours and days following the attack,
And I've shown the video before of Jerry Hauer, on the who was in the studio of Peter Jennings, and he showed up in the studio sometime in the afternoon. Remember Jerry Hauer. Jerry Hauer Jerome Hauer was the person who created this room, this facility that Richard Shearer inherited. Now, Jerry Hauer is obviously, I don't think he was necessarily being 100% honest, because Jerry Hauer stepped down from his role of Director of Office of Emergency Management in New York City, working for Giuliani sometime in, I think, April or May of 2001, saying that he was exhausted, needed to spend some more time with his family. And that's fine. But he was recruited, Jerry Hauer, the person who created the Office of Emergency Management, by the Secretary of HHS of the United States of America. Can't think of the guy's name. He was from Wisconsin on September 10th, 2001. So the previous director of this facility was pulled into a special consultancy role on September 10th, 2001 into the United States government with the new HHS secretary under then President Bush. And then the afternoon, before Building 7 crumbled, Jerry Hauer was on the Peter Jennings show, and he said, because of all of the situation in Lower Manhattan, we are concerned about the structural stability, and we are sealing off a perimeter. Effectively, and many see that, and how can you interpret it any other way, as suggesting there's going to be another building collapse, which eventually was Building 7, which is, you just watch the video and have to come up with your own interpretations. Regardless, the reason why we play this is Richard Shearer he inherited the office. The operations went incredibly smooth. This is an incredibly smooth disaster recovery, operational continuance response. I can almost use the same language as we used in the world of data storage, of business continuity. Very same concepts, right? You need to have secondary sites. Are they mirrored? What's the failover time? And so on and so forth. How long do you need to quiesce operations and responses? Because I actually thought about a lot of this stuff. In fact, I remember I was fairly early in my career, but throughout the first 10 years of my career, first several years anyways, after September 11th, I would frequently, especially in the world of working with data recovery, backup, and archival, I would bump into people who talked about their time as data recovery experts, working in New York City or being hired as consultants after the fact. And I always found the stories to be very, very fascinating, at least from a technical and engineering perspective. But nonetheless, Richard Scheer was involved. He was a key person, seen to be as the director of this response, and he was regarded as doing it very effectively. You can't help but think it's a remarkable coincidence that they had extra people already there, that they had people prepared to handle biological or chemical attacks already there, that they already had a place set up to be a mock, recovery center. I think it was the Pier 90 or 80 or 82, which happens to become the real recovery center. It's a pier that was used for cruise ships. You know, those big cruise ships that you get on and you go out to sea and you go to Bahamas or Bermuda, right? I've been on those. So there were facilities available not too far away from the World Trade Center site that were able to accommodate the needs of relocating the Emergency Response Operations Center. And it was so focused on biological terror. Now, Richard Scheer did have
coordinating the
and this was known as Operation Tripod. So there really was an exercise. There really was plans to have all of these experts there for specifically a biological terror attack. They were able to handle chemical as well, but biological terror, they already had the antibiotics there. They were prepared for an anthrax attack. And the fact that it was scheduled on September the 12th is even more remarkable, because that means that they were already there. They weren't using the materials. If there was a date if one were to actually stage a mock exercise for a biological terror attack, to have the optimal conditions of people being present, facilities being reserved, resources being there but not yet consumed, it would be September 12th, 2001. And that indeed is the day they had scheduled. Now, they wound up canceling it on the afternoon of September 11th, 2001, of course, because everyone was tied up. And they rescheduled it to sometime in 2002. Now, Richard Scheer did wind up going to Congress. Let's see here. Richard. I always miss his name is a difficult spelling here. Sheir. Shei. Here we go. This was his statement in Congress.
I just want to go back a little bit on terrorism. In May
2003.
of 2001, we did a tabletop exercise called Red X. Red X was a attack of bubonic plague in the city, a terrorist incident. It was conducted at OEM with about 70 different entities, agencies, and locales from the entire metropolitan area. 5 minutes into that drill, everybody forgot it was a drill. It became so intense. And as part of that drill, we quarantined Manhattan because we did not have enough information as to what we were dealing with. That drill, the second part of that drill, was scheduled for September 12th on Pier 92. And that was the point of dispensing for the medications in a biological attack.
You heard did you hear that? In an biological attack. I'm gonna play that.
Scheduled for September 12th on Pier 92, and that was the point of dispensing for the medications in a biological attack.
You heard?
Both-
I'm sorry.
And he was gonna say it in an anthrax attack. He was just gonna say it. Now we're looking at a very sophisticated game here. All right. We're talking about operations which are possibly so serious that they involve knowledgeable death of Americans, of sacrificing American lives to do things. We are looking at that series of intelligence operations. This is no joke. All right. I don't know exactly. I haven't done the head count, but it's possible and very likely that this was a inside job, a staged event, and that there really were dozens or hundreds, possibly thousands of Americans knowingly killed as part of it. So you don't run the operations center if you're just some dummy. You're a capable person. And to think that he accidentally misspoke only once and he was going to say anthrax attack, I'm going to give him the credit, the benefit of the doubt that he was smart enough to have knowledge to control what he was going to say and what he was going to say accidentally. And I think that he said that intentionally. He was going to say, he wanted people to think that that was a mistake. But that was him saying it was an anthrax attack that they were planning for.
That was the point of dispensing for the medications in a biological attack.
You heard?
Both-
I'm sorry.
Both those drills served as the basis for how we responded to the anthrax attacks in October of 2001. And we all had thought that the next area that we would be attacked would not be a conventional bomb. It would be chemical biological warfare, and we were really focused on preparing for that.
A biological terror attack in a major U.S. metropolitan center, New York City. So to review, there really was a biological terror exercise, and it really did happen. It was scheduled. It was already scheduled just 2 days after the book was published. The book that everyone loves to ignore, and Houstonic.live has an absolute monopoly right now over the most important asset, amongst the most important assets to understand September 11th, 2001, and amongst the most important assets in the world to connect September 11th, 2001 to COVID-19. And we do so because everyone else takes money from you and from inside stock trading and all this other crap, connections with the SEC to get their money to lie about why people died. So that leaves us with no choice but to have a monopoly on the most important assets out there. Oh, well. Anyways, that's Richard Shearer. And sure enough, these exercises were scheduled. And if there was knowledge, if there was any large repository of a biological agent somewhere in Manhattan, as I suspect there was, I believe it would have been confiscated on September 11th or just beforehand. I don't know the details. I'm still fuzzy on a lot of the details, but it's so painfully obvious at this point. Right now, I'm just dotting the I's and crossing the T's at this point. It's so painfully obvious that a large-scale biological terror attack was being planned and was most likely subverted by whatever the operations were on September 11th, 2001. Somewhat related, I just finished listening to the last few streams of Brandy Vaughn. Oh, I'm glad you listened. Good to have you here. Glad you listened. Sorry, defective link. Oh, that's all right. That's cool. Oh, you didn't go off topic. I'm not worried about it. What was a weird cry? Good question. It sounds like it was a baby. Sounds like someone had their baby there, which is typically an ill-advised thing. But there's a lot of emotion around this. You can tell it was. I don't think it was a signal for anything. You could tell that Richard Scheer had to pause momentarily when that sound was made. I think it was just a baby crying in the background. He looks like the heavy guy who's running the World Bank. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know that other fellow's name. Yeah. I mean, he had a reputation of being a workaholic. Unfortunately, oftentimes when people are workaholics, you resort to medication, drinking, eating, in order to push the human body and mind far further than it's capable of going. So, it's sad. But I think his heart just gave out on him. There were some videos out there that people were upset that there was a emergency response center which used to be open, which was closed, or I should say a hospital with an emergency room, which might have been able to help him out. Now, it's no connection. The only connection is that he just happened to be in a vicinity where he was quite a distance from an emergency room in New York City. So I don't think there was any conspiracy there. It's just it's sad. Okay, it's just sad. But nonetheless, it's a name that I was never really familiar with. But again, he was put into the job and a colleague of someone that's in this book. And his colleague, Richard Hauer, clearly is a big collaborator of Lederberg. Another name no one will ever mention. I don't understand how anyone could make. I don't think it's possible. In fact, I know it is not possible to write a complete book about the biological warfare concerns, bioterrorism concerns, whatever have you, over the last, and I got to go in like 2 minutes, over the last 50 to 75 years and not talk about Joshua Lederberg. Even if he was just a dummy involved in formalities, seeing how many podcasts and books like the Wuhan cover-up go out of their way to never mention Lederberg is fascinating. It's fascinating. But this was Operation Tripod. It was real. If there was more involved as far as cleaning up of a biological agent ahead of time, I don't have documentation about it. But it is well within the realm of possibility that if there was, let's just say, anthrax stores in the World Trade Center or something like that, something which would have been dispersed if there was an explosion in the building, those resources were confiscated, most likely, ahead of time. And the personnel was there and the operation was there. Just saying. All right, guys. Thank you. I've got to get going right now. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys, for joining. To Paige in the chat, follow this person on Odyssey. They have so many Brandy Vaughn shows and interviews. I've reposted a few, but really incredible work digging all of those up. Because if we're not doing it, I don't think anyone else is. Even the Learn the Risk Foundation has not been archiving them. I mean, they've been the source of things which we found and reposted. You might have done some as well, but no one else is doing it. Sadly. Perhaps someday, as her son grows up, he'll be welcomed with an archive of videos of his mom. I think about stuff like that. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you, guys. we will. I'll do another show later. I hear Jonathan Cooey is cooking up something spicy today, so I hope you're following him.